And I remember when I got laid off, it was the end of the world for me. My dreams were shattered. My story is the one of thousands of immigrants who have come to Canada in the last 20 plus years. There was a lot of pressure, I would say, put on all of us as young kids. I always knew that I had to become somebody. I knew that I had to be financially set. I knew that I had to have a career. Those were all things that were expected because of the sacrifices the parents did. I picked a career and a job based on a poster of a girl that looked like me.
You're the CEO of your own life.
Yes, you are.
And with a powerful personal brand in the background, whatever vision you have, you can make it happen.
When you build a personal brand, you have options. And just having options is really powerful. The biggest regret you'll have in life is not having done what you wanted to do when you had the opportunity to.
What were those first few YouTube videos?
Anyways, I'm not going to sing it. Most of why I think my social media has been successful, from YouTube to Instagram to LinkedIn, is because I don't shy away from showing the negative and showing the ugly and the good and the bad.
How important has it been to invest in marketing, actually grow and scale FTV?
Marketing is what's going to be able to make your company make some serious money. If you don't have good marketing, your sales are gonna suffer. It's important for companies to realize just how important branding and marketing is the most important thing in order for you to grow your business and your brand.
What does happiness mean to you?
How do you define that question? I think...
Massiel, you grew up in Montreal, coming over here from a small island in Colombia when you're 4 years old. How does it feel to be back here in Montreal, where it all started?
It's surreal, to be honest. Exciting at the same time, and it's so different when you come back as an adult to where you grew up and you kind of take in all the memories and just to see how far you've come. So it's really awesome to be back.
What was it like growing up for you, like the challenge coming over here at such a young age with your mum and watching her, you know, fight and battle for you and your family to start a new life in a new country? So
I'd say my story is the one of thousands and thousands of immigrants who have come to Canada in the last 20 plus years. And at the end of the day, I'm very grateful for my background and for my childhood, even though it looked different from your traditional, you know, picket white fence, average family style. But I think it's made me who I am today. And so I'm very grateful for that. But to bring you a little bit into it, I arrived here when I was 4. I moved here with my mom, my grandmother, and my uncle. And then the rest of my mother's family moved in afterwards, and they all kind of saw one sibling leave, and we had cousins and uncles who had done it a few years prior. And then there was a big wave of people just moving to Canada in the early 90s. And so we arrived, and I saw the struggle of being an immigrant in Canada where, you know, you don't have a lot of money, you don't speak the language. So nobody spoke French, nobody spoke English, it's just Spanish. And I always tell people, I think it was easy for me as a child. I think the burden and the hardships fell on my mom and like the rest of the adults who moved. And so I think a lot of who I am today and just the confidence that I have, the strong personality that I have, my work ethic, it was just seeing our adults, parents or cousins or uncles go through very difficult moments. And we were just seeing them in the shadows, that, you know, no matter what, it still influenced me. But I don't think like I had a difficult time adapting. Like, you're so young, you're just a sponge. I learned French super quickly. I learned English super quickly. And I can't pinpoint like the challenges of what it was like, because it was just, as a kid, it's easy, I think. Oblivious, right? Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that like work ethic that has helped you like throughout your career, like grow such a successful career and business that I want to talk a little bit about later on, but do you think that watching your mother work so hard and like dedicate her life to just, you know, supporting you and your whole family, do you think that really inspired you growing up?
Of course. I think it was instilled in me from a young age that you cannot waste this opportunity of coming to Canada. And so there was a lot of pressure, I would say, put on all of us as young kids that, hey, your parents sacrificed a ton. We left our countries or, you know, our little comfort zone for you to have a good future. So I always knew that I had to become somebody. I knew that I had to be financially set. I knew that I had to have a career. I mean, those were all things that were expected. because of the sacrifices the parents did. I think looking back, a lot of people didn't take that route, even though their parents did a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like coming back to Montreal sometimes and just seeing that everybody's still doing the same thing and didn't go to school, or not that you have to go to school, but they were okay with being average. And that was something that like I was not okay with doing. And so I knew that I had to do something great.
Yeah. I know fitness has been a huge passion for you, like growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like winning mentality, like determination, like I want to talk a little bit about some of your passions, like growing up, like where did that come from and how do you think that's helped you growing up and then throughout your career as well?
Yeah, so I got into fitness when I was 16 and never looked a day back. I think the only days that I've taken off from fitness were when I had my baby. And they were like, you're not allowed to step into a gym for 2 months. Other than that, for the last 15 plus years, the gym and fitness has just been part of my lifestyle. It's just a thing that I do every day. I don't think too much about it. It's what makes me happy. It's how I can release my energy. It makes me feel good. And it teaches you discipline. And so I think fitness and business just go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think it's so important to take care of your health, your first foundation. Like without that, everything else, builds on top of that. So yeah, I think for me as well, like I couldn't imagine a life without fitness and taking care of my body as well. But aside from fitness, I know there's another passion that you discovered when you were young. Do you want to talk a little bit about where you discovered your passion for presenting and creating content that has kind of evolved and created such an amazing career and business for you further down the line?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of who I am today was definitely because of my mom and my grandmother, and just they always cheered me on. They were always like, you're the best, it's okay to be outspoken, it's okay to not be afraid. And I was the one that would like walk around the bus and like ask people questions and be like, hi, my name is Massiel, like they always pushed me to be different from people. And I would say even I was loud, I would talk a lot in school, etc. And that was usually like negative. And those are the things that they would tell my mom about, like, she's too out there. She won't raise her hand and she's just going to speak up and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, it's what's made me successful is and I think it was just my mom always encouraging me to do that. Part of it too is I would do shows for the family. And so I was the host because I was not a singer or anything else. But my cousins were. And so I'd be the host and we would do these shows in the basement and people had to pay to come in. And of course, it was our family members, so they'd give like $1 or $2. But there was always this weird aspect of business in everything that I did, but also presenting and wanting to be somewhat of an actress. I remember I would beg my mom to bring me to auditions to be a model or just be in a commercial. I used to watch like the Disney Channel and I dreamt of like going to California and doing something like that. But my mom had no idea what that life was like, or like how were we even going to go to California. We couldn't even afford the photo shoots that you had to do if you wanted an agent. And so I would go to the newspaper and there would be like castings, and then I'd make my mom bring me there, and then they were like, okay, well, where's her portraits and all this stuff. And it was, at the end of the day, it was all money in order for you to be casted into a commercial. So that would always stop there because there was no money to be doing that. And so I think when YouTube came around, I saw it as a free source of me being able to put content out. And so I did. Right when YouTube came out, maybe I was like 13, 12, and I started putting videos out. My mom always allowed it, which was nice, and she kind of let me do my thing, but it was always very known that this is not a career.
You need to have a backup plan.
You need to go to school. You need to go to McGill. Like that, you need to become someone. So, it's hard because I think as a parent today, I don't know what the future holds for my daughter, and you only know what you know, but I don't think she knew, obviously, that a career in YouTube or a career in social media could be exceptional today.
Yeah, which it definitely can be, but for her at that time, it must have been very hard for her to.
They didn't understand social media or even YouTube. So, but
I'm curious to hear like what were those first few YouTube videos.
Oh my gosh, I actually have one that I always try to find every year. It's somewhere on Facebook, and it was Kesha. What's that song? Anyways, I'm not going to sing it, but I was just doing music videos of, like playing it. And then I would reenact YouTube, like I would reenact music videos.
Oh my god, like the reaction kind
No,
of
I
style?
would be singing. So
Okay.
I think it was like tick
TikTok.
on the
I know the
clock,
song.
you know that one, and then like I would take like a bottle, you know, it was
Yeah.
like a bottle of something, and I would take like I would go find bottles in my house, and then I would wear like, yeah, I was just reenacting the YouTube videos and
Yeah.
just pretending I was the singer.
So in the background to this passion, like your mum was very clear that you need to have a backup
Yeah,
plan. You need to go to school, and you went to McGill, studied mechanical engineering,
chemical
chemical
engineering.
engineering,
Yeah,
sorry. And around this time, you met a boy named Tim,
yes.
18 years ago.
So I actually met Tim when I was 16. So we were in CEGEP. Actually,
Okay.
earlier, I was in secondaire.
Yeah.
So then we went to CEGEP together, and then I picked chemical engineering. Really had no intention or idea about what chemical engineering was.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a dentist,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody told me that that was not a good career choice for me. But I still was like, I want to be a dentist. And at the end of the day, if I look back, is because I thought they made a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so a lot of my career choices were based around how can I make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so the dentistry thing didn't work out. And so when I was looking for, engineering, because my cousin's an engineer from McGill, and he was like, this would be so good for you. All of my friends who did chemical engineering have great jobs.
Mm-hmm.
He just put this little seed, like you sometimes never know how you can change somebody's life. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let me look into engineering.
Yeah.
I'm good in math. I'm good in science. I was a
Mhm.
really good student. And I remember I Googled highest engineering degree where I can make a lot of money. Literally,
Yeah.
that's what I Googled. And petroleum engineering was the first one, but McGill
Mhm.
didn't have that. And chemical engineering was the second one. And
Yeah.
so I literally applied just because Google told me that it was the highest earning engineering degree.
Yeah.
And then I just went into it without really any idea of what I was going to do next.
And during this time, growing up, you saw your mum like hustle to
Yeah.
make ends meet, and during this time, you were working multiple jobs while still being top of your class.
Yeah. So ever since I think was allowed to work at 16, before that I was always doing random jobs, like I would go knock on doors and say, "Can I clean your backyard with the leaves in the
Yeah.
fall, or can I, remove the snow from your driveway?" I was always trying to make money,
Yeah.
no matter what. Like there was this, like I said, there was this business in me of like I need to make money somehow. And so
Mhm.
anything that I would have, I would try to make a little business out of it.
Yeah.
Then when I could work, I told my mom when I turned 16, I'm like, "Bring me to McDonald's. Like, I want to work at McDonald's." And she was like, "No." Because the thing is, immigrant parents, at least Latin America, they don't
Yeah.
let kids work
Right.
until they're like older.
Okay.
And the reason behind that was that they're worried that you can taste what making money is like, and then you're not going to go to school.
Okay.
And so there was this big thing where it's cast upon in Latin America where your kids should not be working, your kids should be going to school. But here in Canada, most of my friends from, Quebec, they all had jobs at 16 years old. So I was like, "Mom, I want to work at McDonald's." And she was against it because she thought I should go to school. And I'm like, "Well, I could do both." And then she was like, okay, so she brought me to McDonald's. I did not get the job. I don't know why. But then I ended up getting a job at Starbucks.
Okay.
And so I started working at Starbucks. Loved it till this day. It's probably my favorite company to have ever worked for.
Yeah.
They treat their employees extremely well. And I love Starbucks till this day. I've had such a good experience. But having one job wasn't enough for me because I was like, how can I maximize my 24 hours to make as much money as I possibly can?
Okay.
And so after I would finish Starbucks, I would go and I got another job at a bakery nearby where I can just walk to get there. And so most of my summers, I had 2 or 3 jobs and I would work 16 plus hours a day. And that was just, I didn't think that was weird. I just
Yeah.
I was just born to work.
And it didn't feel like it didn't zap your energy. Like it kind of working gave you
I was just
energy.
excited to,
Yeah.
like, I would go look at my little tally of how much money I made at the end of
Yeah.
the day. And there was a lot of pushback, I would say, sometimes from my friends.
Mhm.
Or when you look at your friends having a good time and they're not working, there was a little bit of that guilt of like, oh, I wish I could have their life. And,
Yeah.
they're having a good summer and here I am working all day.
Yeah.
But I didn't let that stop me. It was like, one day I'll be proud of myself, just keep working.
Yeah. And talking about energy, when you graduated, you moved to Alberta and you went straight into the oil field.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to take that step and enter the oil and gas industry?
So I didn't know anything about the oil and gas industry. Growing up in Montreal, you don't know much about it.
Yeah.
And so I was at the career fair in McGill, and there was a poster with a girl wearing blue coveralls. She had her hair and makeup done, and she had stilettos on one foot and steel toes on the other.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, that's me. I'm like, I'm a tomboy, but I also like to dress up. Like I
Mm.
could be both.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I always say it in every podcast, that poster made me pick a career in this company. And
Yeah.
so when we talk about representation and how representation matters, I picked a career and a job based on a poster of a girl that looked like me.
Yeah.
If that poster wouldn't have been there, I would have probably never applied to this company.
Wow.
And so it's again, marketing and branding, like it's so
Yeah.
important. And so I applied to this company as an intern for the summer in my last year of McGill. And I was flown to Alberta to be a frac engineer, like frac intern engineer.
Right.
And I spent the summer up north in Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray, and like north of British Columbia.
Yeah.
In man camps, which is like 400 plus, most of them men.
Yeah.
And very few women. And then the crew size of a frac fleet is pretty big. You're like 20 to 30 people, depending on how big the job is. And I was always the only girl. And the youngest on top of it.
Yeah.
But weirdly, I thrived in that environment. It was cool to be different. It was cool that I didn't look like anybody else, and that, I did stand out, but I always took it to my advantage of, I think standing out is cool. People try to be like, oh, but you're the only one. Embrace it. And so I loved that summer. And that summer, I learned about the oil and gas industry, how cool it was that we were literally fracking for gas to power Canada and a lot of other places. And then also the salaries tied behind oil and gas. I was, interviewing all these guys that worked with me, and I'm like, how much money do you make? How much money can I make if I come back here? And, they would tell me their salaries. And I was like, did you go to school? And they're like, no, I dropped out of high school. And I'm like, wait, I could have came here and like skipped my engineering degree and made 6 figures. That's crazy. And so I was just shocked. It was another world that I had never been exposed to. And I remember when I first started working in oil and gas, I called every single one of my cousins and uncles. And I was like, hey, did you know you can make 6 figures as an operator in Alberta, in Canada, and you could have days off? And people get excited and they're like, oh my gosh, I could do this. But then they don't. And I remember thinking, like, you all have opportunities to go do all this, but people aren't willing to leave their comfort zone, and they're not willing to sacrifice for a better future. And that to me was mind blowing. That I was like, I could get you a job. I know people, they're looking for talent. They need just people to come out here in Alberta and work. And you're not willing to do that to provide more for your family. It just made me realize, even though people want more for themselves, it takes a lot for you to move and go do something.
A lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
It's hard. Yeah. But during this time when you were learning about the oil and gas industry, like how was it trying to find information about it online, and like what did that kind of lead you into?
I would say that's probably the start of my YouTube channel and a lot of my social media is when I got my job offer, it said, wireline field engineer.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what that meant. Didn't know much about the company either, like in detail. And the first thing I did as now I am a millennial, but back then this is a new thing. I went to YouTube and I typed in wireline field engineer, or I typed in the company, and very, very few videos came out. And when I would look for oil and gas, I could just find like some little crappy animations of like how to drill a well, but there was no content. Yeah. And so that was hard because most of us, like, you even today, I get people that are like, I got a job offer and I YouTubed it. Like, that's still a thing today.
100%.
And I was shocked that companies were just not putting content out there when for a lot of people, it's a huge decision making. They're like, oh, never mind. Pepsi looks cooler. Like, Pepsi's showing all the inside of their factories, and this is what a career would look like here. Yeah. And so I think that's what sparked my idea of I need to be on YouTube and I need to tell people about oil and gas because it's such a great industry. Just like I was calling my cousins to come work in Alberta, I was trying to give people the platform of, hey, you can have a great career if you join the industry as well.
So this was like kind of the early seeds into building your personal brand. I want to explore that a little bit more further on, but just first of all, like, for anybody who doesn't know what is wireline, can you give us a brief definition of like how it works?
Yes. So let's see. So you drill a well. Yeah. And there's a portion called open hole, which is open hole. It's just the ground. Right. And the companies who are drilling for this oil or gas, they need to know what are the reservoirs where the money is
Yeah.
Like, where are we going to make money? There's
Right.
only certain areas underground that have oil or gas. So you
Right.
can go in and drill, but all you have is water or nothing. You
Right.
wasted a lot of money and resources. And
Mm-hmm.
so they pay service companies, I was one of them, to
Mm.
come log your well.
Okay.
So I was a logger.
Yeah.
It's just funny to say it. And so we would show up with our little truck that looks like a blue garbage can.
Yeah.
Not garbage can, a garbage truck. And in the back of the truck, it's your office. So
Yeah.
you have computers and you have a window and you see the wireline cable, which is
Yeah.
just a big roll of cable in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job was to connect all the tools with the operators at surface.
Mm-hmm.
And the tools are electronic tools that give you different information about the earth.
Yeah.
So density, porosity, neutron, like gamma rays, all these things that are just mineral, like things that you can find in the ground that give you indicators of whether or not you have oil or you have gas and how much of it you have.
Yeah.
And so companies are like, a lot of the times the customer would be there being like, what does my log look like? Like, they're just so worried. They're like freaking out because they just spent all this money and they need to know if there's oil in there. Like, did they hit the jackpot? And that was me. I had to go deliver this to the customer and be like, good job, or like, oof, okay, you guys figure it out.
Yeah.
And so we were paid to pretty much put the tools inside the ground with that cable. So the cable goes down and then the tools go, and I monitor everything on my computer screen.
Right.
And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. You're putting different tools that the customer requests into an oil well and you give them data. So all the data would come back to surface and then I would be able to read it for them.
Yeah.
And then they can get it analyzed afterwards.
It's cool. It's very advanced technology. And I know like a lot of this similar technology is used in like the aerospace industry and a lot of like high tech industries, but the perception of energy is very different.
Energy is so high tech and people have no idea how high tech it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're literally drilling crazy wells offshore in the middle of the deep water in the North Sea or offshore, you know, in different regions in the world.
Yeah.
Where they're drilling through, they need to get through the ocean.
Yeah.
And then there's a ground below the ocean that they're drilling through. And then they got to complete it and put things down. And you're like, think about that. They're literally like drilling stuff as if it was in Mars. Like, it's just so cool to think about sometimes the environments that we work in.
And I think during this whole time, like whilst you were learning all of these things, like entering the industry, you must have realized, oh, like there is a lot of high tech in this. And also like as a woman in the industry, like I'm working out in the oil field with, you know, there's not many other people like me here. So I want to share my story and get other people to join. And I just want to share the statistic that I saw you shared a while ago on LinkedIn, which is 2% of engineers in the US are female and Latina. And I want to hand you this picture of
that was me in my internship. Yeah, so that's a frac pump in the back. And I was in my internship wearing my little green hard hat. So green means you're new to the company. It's just so people watch out for you. We're really big on safety in the oil and gas industry. It's part of our DNA where we don't want people to get hurt because we are working with a lot of, you know, dangerous things out there. And so it's a way to show people that. But yeah, I would say a lot of the posts or even the initial stages of my social media and YouTube was because I thought these numbers are so low and they're very disappointing because I think there's such great talent, and if I can do it, why can't you? Like, I'm not special. And so I was like, why isn't there more women going into engineering? Why is there not more women joining the industry, knowing how much opportunity there is for you? I just wanted to open the door and be like, come here, we need you. And so the numbers are extremely low. Unfortunately, I think I made that post like 2 years ago and the numbers are still probably the same today. So
wow. But during this early like period when you first started creating content online, like what were some of your goals, and like what was like kind of your why behind creating content?
So my why behind creating content was just to bring awareness specifically for women, the career opportunities that they had.
Right.
Mainly because I wanted more women to be financially free from needing a man. I don't know. I thought that I could help women realize their potential and that they
Yeah.
are smart and that they could be engineers, and that I was just trying to be a proponent to help women realize the opportunities that they had in front of them that maybe
Yeah.
sometimes they don't see because they don't have representation. They
Hmm.
didn't they It's hard for us to see a woman that looks like us in
Yeah.
a good, management role, leading a company. I think I told you earlier, 1% of Fortune 500 company CEOs is a woman,
Yeah.
Latina woman on top of it. 1%.
Right.
It's 10% across Fortune 500 companies for women, and then just 1% of it is a Latina woman.
Hmm.
And so I felt like if I could be that representation for
Yeah.
other women, then I can get more Latina women and just women in general to join the industry and to become engineers.
It's very powerful. From more of like kind of a marketing and storytelling angle, I think like telling genuine, unfiltered, raw,
Yeah.
authentic stories is like how you build trust and connect with people on an emotional level. So how has that been like showing like the vulnerable sides and being completely like unfiltered and honest about your journey and sharing?
So I'll say from the beginning, it is hard when you share your life on social media
Mm.
or when you just even create posts and content.
Yeah.
It comes with a lot of baggage in the sense that there's a lot of criticism. There's
Hmm.
people who aren't going to like you,
Yeah.
or just people who are going to think that you're weird because you're posting your life online. And so, luckily, from the start, it was not something that bothered me of
Mm.
other people's perception. And I knew that what I was doing was positive at the end of the day. And so, just creating content for me was extremely important in order to continue to shine a positive light on just the career opportunities that people had.
Yeah. And people love when you're authentic about yourself. I
Yeah.
feel.
So I would say most of why I think my social media has been successful, from YouTube to Instagram to LinkedIn,
Yeah.
is because I don't shy away from showing the negative and
Yeah.
showing the ugly and the good and the bad. And so I think people come to watch my content and they know that like they can get the real and the raw from Massiel, because I
Yeah.
will never sell out and I won't
Yeah.
just sugarcoat things. And I personally, when I consume content, I appreciate that the people that I'm following or that I
Mm.
consume their content, I know that they're being real and raw.
Yeah. I think it's a great point because there's so much content out there that you see
It's all
that
polished and everything's
exactly.
perfect. And people don't, I personally don't think people want that. People want
No.
you to show the tears and the hardships and the difficult and the challenges.
And that's how you really stand out. Like everyone is very unique, but everyone is kind of afraid to share
Yeah.
their true vulnerable self. And you shared something very interesting yesterday about the Olympics and some of the most memorable people from the Olympics, and they're kind of the crazy ones, like the Australian girl breakdancing, the Turkish shooter who just decided I'm not gonna be like everyone else
I'm not
and
going to wear all this stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, like what would your advice be to someone who's maybe scared to share, like be vulnerable and share all the details about their life? How can you be more memorable?
So I think this goes to any business or any setting that you're in. For example, in corporate America, which is what I'm in,
Yeah.
I would say many people for many years have just been taught to, put your head down and work really hard.
Hmm.
And that's going to help you be successful.
Yeah.
And that could be true. But I would say now with social media and just with the age that the where we are today in 2024, attention sells.
Yeah.
Attention can get you so much. And
Mhm.
even though people sometimes see attention as bad,
Yeah.
any attention is good.
Yeah.
Even if it's you're talking bad about this publicity or you're talking bad about this ad of how bad it was, you're getting
Yeah.
people to talk about
Yeah.
it or about you.
Hmm.
And so I think I've slowly realized that even though it's looked down upon when you're a little bit visible because you have a social media side to you,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I think it's helped me a lot in my career. And
Yeah.
even being where I am today with FTB, or even in my own career journey, putting content online has helped me get to where I am in a successful place, versus if I would have just been like the rest and just been a number and just hidden
Yeah.
behind a screen, liking other people's content and never creating content.
And I think that's a great point. Like you're never gonna please the 100% of people.
No.
And I think having the bravery and willing to take that risk that I might piss off 80% of people.
Yeah.
But I'm really gonna win that other 20%. And that's the 20% that is gonna be extremely valuable. That's the type of stuff that can change your life, and it has changed yours.
Yeah.
And I wanna fast forward to 2017. You shared a very vulnerable story about getting laid off, being postpartum as well. Like, how did that post change your life, and how did that inspire you? Having this personal brand is like kind of your security and safety net. How did that give you the confidence to start your own business? I want to hand over this picture.
She's so big now. So let me go back to getting laid off.
Okay.
And I think when you look at your life through all the moments that have happened,
Yeah.
it's kind of cliche, like the hard ones, the challenge are going to make you stronger. Like you hear that and you're like annoyed a little bit. But if I look back at my life, those hardships where I thought my world was ending have literally made me stronger. And I'm so thankful for that. Just like I'm thankful for my childhood. Like you have to be thankful about things that make you stronger.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got laid off, it was the end of the world for me because I was so serious in my career. I had graduated university. I was there for, I think, almost 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, when you start working in a company, you see yourself there for 30 years till I retire. Like that was just, I don't think that's a thing anymore with the new Gen Zs, etc. Like everybody's skipping jobs left and right. You're not going to be there for 30 years. Not anymore. But for me, that was initially like, I'm going to be here forever. And I'm going to, even thought that I would be somebody in this company.
Yeah.
And when I got laid off, it was like my dreams were shattered. I think a lot of us identify with our careers, like, oh, I'm an engineer and that's it. And I think that moment made me realize that I'm so much more, and if I focus on other things that make me really good in my career but could also make me good on my own, like my personal branding or having a good network, can make you successful in areas where it could happen again, especially with how cyclical the oil and gas industry is. And so it was the worst day of my life. I think I cried for multiple days. But then now I realize that working on my personal brand, which I have done through YouTube and Instagram, etc., is so valuable because now I'm no longer dependent on just a company because I have such a good network of people who want me to go work for them left and right, And so it feels good that you're choosing to work somewhere because you want to, because you're happy there versus like the need to be there because you don't have any other options. And I think when you build a personal brand, you have options. And just having options is really powerful. It feels good.
And I want to talk about from this, like, FTB formed around this time, maybe a little bit later on.
2019,
I think having that confidence and reflection time, getting laid off, but okay.
What's the worst that can happen is
exactly.
I think what I learned is when you want to take a risk, and I think a lot of us are scared to take risks and we don't. And I listen to way too many podcasts where they always tell you that the biggest regret you'll have in life is not having done what you wanted to do when you had the opportunity to. And I also think we're still at the age where we're young and we could still redesign our entire life and career in the next 20, 30 years. But if you don't take that risk now, and that was part of when we were thinking about flipping the barrel, if I don't take this risk now, what makes me think that when I'm older with more responsibilities, being a parent, etc., I'm going to be able to take that kind of risk? It gets harder and harder as the years go by. And so I just knew, like, I just got to risk it. And what's the worst that could happen? Not that much. You just get up the next day. We always say, like, the worst that can happen is that you die. Like, if that's not that, then you're okay. So try new things and get out of your comfort zone.
Okay, so where did flipping the barrel come from? Like, obviously you built this platform, you've been creating content for many years, just documenting your whole journey, being a woman in the industry and inspiring other women to join and sharing your story. So where did this idea for flipping the barrel originate? And can you tell a little bit about the story behind, like, where it came from?
Yeah, so Jamie and I love telling this story at all our events, but it's interesting how the growth of Flipping the Barrel started and how even Jamie and I met. So a lot of people think Jamie and I have been friends forever, but we always tell people our friendship was Flipping the Barrel. We had just met like 3 weeks before we started the podcast, which is crazy to think you'd get into a podcast and even business with somebody that you just met. But we clicked and we knew. Like, when you know, if you know, you know. But what happened was her husband reached out to me on Instagram
Yeah.
about a salad that I was eating at a restaurant in Houston. And I
Okay.
just thought that was weird. Like, okay. And he told me exactly what salad it was. And I was like, okay. And then he went on to say, you should meet my wife. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think you guys would be really good friends.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was weird because I'm like, which guy's DMing me or sliding into my DMs to tell me to meet their wives? Like, I just thought it was funny. But I
Yeah.
think what was interesting is at the time, I had just moved to Houston from Midland because I
Mm-hmm.
was working in Midland. I moved to Houston, and most of us who work in the industry, we work with mainly men,
Yeah.
and they're usually a lot older than us, like 10 plus years older. So if you look at the team of men that I worked with at the time, they were all 10 years older than me, and it's hard to build friendships with dudes, you
Yeah.
know? And so I didn't have many friends, and I think a lot of women can relate to this is you don't have that like friendship bond like in other industries because you don't work with that many women.
Yeah.
And so I took him up on the offer because I was like, that sounds great. I would love to meet your wife. I don't have any friends that are
Yeah.
my age.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing is when she tells the story, and I'll try to like imitate her, but she was like, her husband told her, hey, I DM'd this girl, Massiel, about meeting up with you. And she was
Mm.
like, you DM'd a girl? Why were you sliding into a girl's DMs? Why are you even following this girl? So she came on the attack more of
Yeah.
like, what? But then she kind of like looked in and she's like, I went and looked at your Instagram and here you are like posing in coveralls. Like, why is my husband looking? So it was just a funny start to Flip in the Barrel. But then she agreed to meet up with me, and then we went to
Yeah.
lunch at that salad place, and we spoke for about 5 hours from the moment we met, and we knew that we could do something together. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you just meet someone and
It just clicked.
you're like, we could do something great together, and
Yeah.
that's kind of just how it felt. And about a few weeks later, she invited us to her house with Tim, and we were just talking in the kitchen and like making fun of things and just
Mhm.
arguing about oil and gas and women opportunities. And that's kind of how the idea came to be of just like, yeah, maybe you guys should start a podcast. And we did. We didn't think about it. We just started the podcast.
And the early idea for the podcast, what were some of the inspirations that you took? when you
Yeah.
were-
So in 2019, I was really big into Guy Raz on
Yeah.
how I built this. It was my
Yes.
favorite. Till this day, I still listen to it. It's my
Yeah,
favorite podcast. One of my favorite podcasts. And it was all about entrepreneurship and just starting with an idea and all the challenges. Because people, you just see the brand at Costco, like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, cool. But the challenges, the funding that it took, just so much would come to be, and then just their success stories. And so
Yeah.
I loved his style of episode, and he was a big inspiration to both Jamie and I in terms of starting something similar where we can interview not entrepreneurs because there's not that many that we
Mhm.
knew in the time, but it was like Fortune 500 companies or
Yeah.
oil and gas CEOs or oil and gas operators that we can interview.
And it is so interesting to see how like a podcast can grow into like a whole community that FTB
Yes.
has. What would you say is some of the key reasons that has helped FTB like evolve into what it is today?
I will say it's because it's so unique.
Yeah.
And nobody at the time was doing this kind of podcast where it was very focused on energy CEOs, from operators or service companies, especially two women and like women's perspective. And we were asking different questions on like, hey, what are your diversity and inclusion numbers look like? How many females do you have on your board? Why is the pipeline so low?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your career journey. Do you have any advice? What have been your challenges? And at that time, and even today, these kind of CEOs that we get lucky enough to have on our podcast, we're not taking external interviews like that. Like
No.
only if, Bloomberg was calling you or like
Yeah.
a very reputable business interview would call, then a CEO would say yes to.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're saying yes to podcasts now or Flipping the Barrel podcast is really powerful. And I think there's been a big change in communication in corporate America, but specifically in the oil and gas industry, where for many, many years, we've always shied away from being in the public eye.
Right.
They don't like to talk about what they're doing. They kind of want to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's changed over the last few years, especially after COVID, where they've realized like we need to have a voice because people hate us. People think so badly about our industry, but we're also not doing anything to advocate for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of our fault at the same time. We're just staying away from the public eye, but we're not fighting back saying like, look at everything that we provide to the world.
Yeah. And they're just normal people like when they share the story, people are going to connect with them,
Yeah.
and the industry is going to have a better light shined on it.
Yeah.
But as well, I think building a brand as well, like you mentioned in the early days of FTP, like you just create everything on Canva yourself. But like
Yes.
as the years have gone on, like how important has it been to invest in marketing as you grow and scale FTP?
Yeah. I think we were the traditional, like, we're entrepreneurs, we wear multiple hats, we got to do it all. We got to
Yeah,
record, we got to edit,
yeah,
we got to do our website, we got to do our own social media.
yeah,
And I remember always hearing like outsourcing is the most important thing in order for you to grow your business and your brand.
yeah.
But you don't know until you actually do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
we were just doing everything because we didn't want to pay anybody to
Yeah,
do anything. And so we were doing things on Canva. Like I remember I did the website on Squarespace. Tim did help me, but
mm-hmm.
I was the one uploading the stuff. I was the one putting things together. Jamie would do things on Canva. We the only thing we outsourced because we really didn't know how to do it was somebody to edit our audio podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But other than that, we handled all our social media, our LinkedIn, etc. And we didn't spend any money on like a nice logo because
Yeah,
we're like, why would anybody pay for a logo?
yeah,
Yes, you need to pay for a nice logo. If
yeah,
you see the evolution of our logos, our FTB one now is beautiful and
yeah.
it could be on a nice shirt. What we had before is kind of cringe. And so I think it's important for companies to realize just how important branding and marketing is because
Yeah.
when I was telling you, we did the marketing for 2 years ourselves.
Mhm.
Jamie and I are not good creative people when it comes to designing things to
Yeah.
look attractive online or even a
Mhm.
website. And so about 2 years ago, we were like, maybe we should spend a little bit of money into creating nicer content so people can take us more seriously because now
Yeah.
when we're asking people to invest in us,
Yeah.
they're going to go look at what our stuff looks like. And if it looks like a 5-year-old girl put it together, it's harder to want to put something behind your company.
Yeah.
And so when we switched over and Midnight Marketing took over our marketing, I mean, we are 10x plus, better off today. And we look like a real reputable brand
Yeah.
worldwide now versus like us putting things on Canva.
Yeah. I think just like we spoke about before, your personal brand really matters
Mm-hmm.
and can be so powerful for you to use as a platform. Like when people, I don't know, if you're applying for a job or starting a business or like you have a lead, somebody's going to search your name and look about your background. And the same for your brand, like your identity matters, like the small details about your brand, how you appear, how your values are portrayed. Like people pick up on those little things.
Yeah, for example, if you're a CEO of a huge company and I say, hey, do you want to come on Flipping the Barrel podcast?
Yeah.
I'm sure their comms people, etc., are going to go www.flippingthebarrel.com. And if our website looks like I put it together, and they go to look at our LinkedIn and it's like some trashy post that like we're trying to piece things together, they're probably going to decline because at the end of the day, their brand is going to come on ours. Now, when you go to www.flippingthebarrel.com, it's a beautiful website. You've got our events, like our landing pages, our Instagram, our LinkedIn. We look like a real company. And so it's easier for people to get behind that or even want to come to an event because we look serious online. And if you don't take your stuff seriously, no one's going to take it seriously, especially if they come Google you.
Yeah. And like same, I know you shared this example before in real life, like it really matters how you appear, how you present yourself, taking care of yourself and showing to other people like, I'm going to invest in myself. And the same thing for your brand, you need to invest in your brand, your look, your identity, your values. You need to present that correctly or people aren't going to buy into you.
Correct. Marketing is what's going to be able to make your company make some serious money.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have good marketing, your sales are gonna suffer. Like that's why marketing is so valuable. It's literally what can triple your company.
And for the oil and gas industry, do you feel like marketing is kind of overlooked a lot of the time? And why is that? And why should companies start to look more into investing in their marketing?
Agree. I think it's overlooked. Things have changed, I would say, since COVID, and companies are slowly starting to realize that, hey, they should focus on their marketing.
Yeah.
Because the new generation of decision makers care about this stuff. Before it was like, oh, I know Joe, he's been here for 30 years and he takes me golfing and I buy his products.
Yeah.
The new generation that's not how you're going to sell them. It's probably through whatever they're looking on their phones and being
Hmm.
like, that looks like a really cool drilling tool. I'm
Yeah.
going to give this company a try. Unfortunately, that's what it's come to. People want content. They want to be sold in a different way versus
Hmm.
like, he used to take me out for lunch for 30 years. Like, that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
So I think people never relied on marketing because you relied a lot on your sales people on the
Yeah.
ground, which
Yeah.
is very relationship based.
Yeah.
But I think now that decision makers are changing and it's like new up and coming millennials and Gen
Yeah.
Zs that are in place, people realize after COVID, this is how you can get sales now, and how you
Yeah.
can get a good brand identity is through social media for these companies, which before it was like, we don't belong on social media. We're an energy company.
Right.
Most companies didn't have Instagram or a LinkedIn until a few years ago. So they're very behind on the tech world or on the rest of the industries that knew that social media was important.
Yeah, I think marketing and sales are always kind of at a conflict, but your marketing team can do all of the hard work
Yeah.
and educate your audience on like what are the key benefits of your products, who we are as a company, like why should you buy into us, what are our values?
I'll give you an example. I was a sales woman for 4 years in Midland,
Yeah.
selling different perforating products. And I think I'm a great salesperson.
Yeah.
But no matter how good I am in my meeting, and I'm like, here's my flyer.
Yeah.
And it's like, I drew it.
Yeah.
And like, no matter how good I am at selling, my product is on this product sheet. My
Yeah.
flyer's on this product sheet. Having a nice piece of marketing material where I'm like, this is us, go check out our website, go check out our LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, let me play you this sick video of like what my tools can do. Boom.
Yeah.
That's what's going to help me close the sale.
Yeah.
Even though I can come in and shake my hand and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if your marketing is not great, I'm not going to take you seriously. And they weren't taking me seriously. Only till our marketing got really nice is when
Yeah.
we can compete.
Yeah, it's the way you present your ideas. If you have something visual to back it up,
It helps a lot because
Yeah.
people can see it, but they could also see the quality. Because if you're spending money on your content,
yeah,
your
you're
product
definitely
is
investing
probably
in your
really
product.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And great marketing can also, like, you can have a product that's not great, that great marketing can sell as
You
well.
can sell. Yes. How many of us have been, bought something that is like so bad and shitty, but you're like, man, they got me. That's marketing.
Yeah.
And like the company still made a ton of money off of you, and that's all they care about. So,
What do you think makes a great brand?
what makes a great brand? I think when they make it very relatable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think when it's like relatable, and I also think how they present themselves from the leadership team as well.
Yeah.
Like if their CEO's cool, if their
Yeah.
CEO's on TikTok, if their CEO's approachable, like I automatically think the brand is better, or I want to be part of it. And I would say a lot of it has to do with the people behind the brand too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like people buy from people they know and trust. And when companies are willing to be authentic and share the people behind the business and like how they operate, it really helps you to buy into it a lot more. But yeah, obviously as well, having the ability to know how to position your products as well is so important. I want to build from this and talk a little bit about how energy as an industry can better show itself and present itself.
So this is a conversation Jamie and I have with a lot of people, and it's getting to the point where I'm like, you guys are the big companies, like the operators, the service companies, like you guys have the businesses that are actually impacting the economy. You're making the big bucks. You guys have to do something.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of it relies on like, yes, you and Jamie continue to do Flip in the Barrel and help us look great. And we will continue to do so because we care. But like they all have to look in the mirror and realize that they have to play a part in this. It's not like, yes, you guys, please help our industry look great.
Yeah.
We're kind of turning the tables now where it's like, you guys need to do this. Like, it's great that Jamie and I are helping the next generation, even with the Energy If You Know, You Know podcast, which is, partnered with Liberty.
Yeah.
Like, we need companies like Liberty that are like willing to put the work behind what it takes.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we are affecting a lot of Gen Zs to now look into the oil and gas industry and think about a career there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, it's not Jamie's and I's job
Yeah.
Like it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like everybody should be doing a part in this. Like
Yeah.
everybody has a voice and everybody should be trying to promote the industry because we need it. It powers
Hmm.
the world and
Yeah.
we need the next generation. There's a huge talent gap in the industry, which
Yeah.
is one of the reasons we started Energy Fino,
Yeah.
was because a lot of the companies that we talked to, they're like, we can't get anybody to apply anymore. Or a lot of people are
Hmm.
turning down their job offers because they're going to Amazon, they're going to Facebook, they're going to, whatever. And the industry wasn't as cool, or people are declining a lot of those jobs. So they need to do a lot to change the image of
Yeah.
their industry and of their companies for the next generation. And yes, we're helping, but at this point we're really putting it on back on them and saying like, you guys need to do your own content. You guys need to help us help you.
Yeah. And there's such a big wave coming. Like you spoke earlier about um how the decision makers are kind of shifting more to millennial and Gen Z, and they really care more about media.
Yeah.
And seeing how brands present themselves, and like they're not going to work for a company that has no presence.
Yeah.
As well. So was that one of the key influences that inspired you to start Energy, if you know now?
Yeah, definitely. It was mainly because of the conversations that we were having with a lot of senior executives, with the fact that there is a talent gap.
Hmm.
So a lot of people aren't joining the industry for whatever reasons. And it's our future. It's the future of the industry. And a
Yeah.
lot of the reasons why they're not joining can be tackled very easily with some cool marketing and
Yeah.
like a look behind the companies,
Yeah.
because Gen Zs came with a different perception of the industry. They're more
Yeah.
about like saving the planet and the
Yeah.
environment, and oil and gas is bad.
Yeah.
And they will believe that unless we do something that is a little bit counter, like, no, actually, you should come work here
Yeah.
because this is where the future is going to be for the oil and gas industry
Hmm.
and for all the transitions that we have. So
Yeah.
if you care about the planet, you care about the environment, come to the oil and gas industry, because this is where the change is going to happen. This is
Yeah.
where we need you, your technologies, your smart brain of how we're
Yeah.
going to do things here, because this is where the change is going to happen.
Yeah.
Staying on the other side and just saying like, you guys are bad against the
Mhm.
environment is not going to help. So I always tell people who are against it,
Yeah.
great, come here. We need a lot of people like you who can help us
Hmm.
make this more effective, make it more green, help us reduce the emissions.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is where the ship is. You need
Yeah.
to help us steer it instead of just complaining on the other side.
This is where you can really make an
This is
impact.
where you can make an impact, because we're not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
Oil and gas isn't going anywhere.
And I know we spoke a little bit earlier briefly about the story when you met Tim around 18 years ago. I want to kind of zoom back 4 years ago when Tim first started Midnight. And I know there's a hilarious picture that you recently shared
Yeah.
of
I actually had to crop it.
the early office. I'm gonna pass this over to you.
Yeah, so I had to crop it because he's in his underwear. So, and you just see his legs, and that would be kind of cringe. But yeah, this is in our basement, right before he started Midnight. So he's
Yeah.
like starting to figure it out. And just to kind of backtrack, so yeah, Tim and I have been together for 18 years. So he's
Yeah.
really been through my dentistry wannabe to picking engineering to being
Yeah.
an intern to moving for, so he's really been on the sidelines the entire time.
Yeah.
But he was more in the tech side and never oil and gas.
Yeah.
He just knew about it through the sidelines because I talked about it at home
Mhm.
until we moved to Houston. And that was in, it was like 2020-ish,
Yeah.
2019-ish. And when we moved to Houston, he's always been an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
always really good at branding and marketing. Like it's just in his DNA. He has
Mhm.
a good eye.
Mhm.
And so when I started working in sales in oil and
Yeah.
gas, he started to meet with people in Houston, with digital marketers, with Colin and Jake, and just creating a community because he was new to Houston.
Mhm.
And he realized quickly that a lot of companies did not have a brand
Yeah.
online. They didn't know about marketing, or they didn't treat marketing like how it should.
Yeah.
And so I think he just saw a lot of potential in the industry. So it was really the first time in our life that he kind of took a look at oil and gas and was like, maybe I should come here and
Yeah.
like create something cool because you guys need it.
Mhm.
And so even he would look at the materials that I had and he'd be like, this is horrible, So I think he just saw a need and a need and
Yeah.
a demand.
Yeah.
And he just pieced it together, and that's when he started Midnight.
Yeah. And I guess watching that how's it been watching that journey evolve over the past 4 years?
Yeah, so actually before he started Midnight, he was consulting in
Hmm.
the industry and just
Yeah.
helping people out with their marketing. So he did that for about a year and a half ish, where companies would just come to him and be like, "Can you build me my website?
Mhm.
Can you help me with a social media post? Can you make a flyer for me?" He was just a one-man show type of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember all of a sudden it was just word of mouth
Hmm.
where he would do somebody's website and then their buddy who owned another company was like, "Hey, who did your website? I need a website." And so
Hmm.
he started taking on more and more. And I remember those, let's say, even probably 16 months, he was, I think I have pictures of him. He would not leave anywhere without his Mac. Like he
Yeah.
had his Mac. Any picture that you see of him, it was like on the couch with
Yeah.
the Mac. And he was either building somebody's website, like
Yeah.
consulting somehow. And it was just a lot of work on building a business, but he
Yeah.
didn't have a Midnight Marketing yet. It was just him. It was just him by himself.
Right.
But I saw that side of just work, 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 where sometimes I'd be like, you need to go to bed. Like, have you slept in the past month?
Yeah.
But he was just so dedicated to making sure his customers were served. But I don't think people knew that it was just him. They probably
Yeah.
thought he had like
A
a
team.
team, but it was
Yeah.
just, he was like doing everything. And then I remember when he started Midnight, he hired his first employee.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm more like corporate, like safe. I don't
Yeah.
like too much even though I tell people like risk is good, I'm more of like a safe person. And I was
Yeah.
like, how are you gonna pay someone? Like that's
Yeah.
just somebody's salary. Like all of a sudden you're growing
Yeah.
from 1 to 2. Then he hired the second and then the third. And just watching him on the sideline, I think Tim has always taken a lot of risk and he always bets on himself of being
Yeah.
successful, which I think a lot of people like myself would be like, what if I can't afford to pay this person? What if the company goes to nothing? What if it doesn't work out? Like that's how a lot of people think, and then they never start.
Yeah.
He even like, I don't even think he has those questions come through his mind. He's just like, this is gonna work and I'm gonna grow this team and we're gonna be the best marketing company. Like that's just how he thinks, and he's a
Mhm.
big visionary, and I think that's why he's been able to be very successful. He
Yeah.
just has a big vision. He trusts himself. He knows that whatever he does is gonna be good. And I also think he's the kind of person that always says, and if it doesn't work out,
That's okay.
what's the worst that can happen? Like
Yeah.
he's that kind of guy, like just go big or go home, and if it doesn't work out, like, oh well, I'll try tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he's got that risk factor in him. But it's been really awesome to see him build it over the years. And even when I walked into the Midnight HQ, I was like, it was kind of weird for me to
Yeah.
be like, oh my God. Like sometimes I don't think he has a real company, like I'm like, you have a company, you have employees. Like it's just so weird because I just see him at home
Yeah.
on his
Yeah.
laptop. And then I come and I see it and I'm like, oh, this is so cool what you've been able
Yeah.
to build. But yeah, I'm very proud of him.
That's awesome. I think experimentation.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned before with FTB, that's been a huge part in like
Yeah.
driving your success. Same here with Midnight. Like it's kind of
Trying
like
things out. Yeah.
it might not work, but having a fail first mentality, like a lot of great things are gonna come from it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to end off a little closing segment. I have a few questions for you. Some of them are a little bit more personal. Some of them are more marketing based.
Okay.
Yeah, the first question I have is, have you seen the recent Nike campaign for the Olympics?
The Nike campaign?
Yeah, winning isn't for everyone.
No.
No. Do you know
No.
William Dafoe?
No.
He's like the perfect villain archetype, and it's such a great ad. It kind of paints the story of winning as a selfish pursuit.
It is.
And like, do you think the obsession with success and winning is selfish? And is that okay? Is it okay to be selfish?
I think it's okay to be selfish. I think you can only win if you're selfish, and if
Yeah.
you put a lot of time into your art, into being passionate, and sometimes people will think a little too much. Like you work too much. You're too into your business. You're too, and I think there's a few quotes where like just people won't get it, and that's okay. And if
Yeah.
people don't get it, then you're doing something right, because you don't want to be ordinary, kind of like everybody else. And
Yeah.
it's hard for people to understand what your drive is, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like you don't have to explain it to people.
Yeah, you mentioned sacrifice earlier in the episode as well. And I think, like you said, a lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice
No.
or willing to take that risk.
Yeah. I think that's sad. Because I always say it on my Instagram and things like that, but like you only have one life.
Yeah.
you better make sure you're doing something like insanely amazing with your life. And that's
Yeah.
taking risks. That's
Yeah.
trying things out. That's getting out of your comfort zone. That's quitting
Yeah.
your job
Yeah.
and like starting something.
Yeah.
Cause I couldn't imagine just being normal. I
Yeah.
guess yeah.
And you made the great point, like you're the CEO of your own life.
Yes, you are.
And with a powerful personal brand in the background, having the vulnerability to share your story.
Yeah.
Like you can do whatever vision you have, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about stories, my next question, obviously on this podcast, we're all about how to tell better stories and how to become better storytellers. I want to ask you, how important has the communication of your story been in changing your life and your success?
How has it changed my life? I mean, I think what's cool about my story is that initially when I started to create content,
Yeah.
like I said, there's a lot of backlash
Mm-hmm.
of like, what are you doing? This is not good for your career.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get back in your little box because we all follow the rules. And I never followed rules. I never followed rules even as a kid. And so I just like to challenge the status quo and just, I don't know, sometimes it could get me in trouble because I'll say crazy things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it's what makes me successful.
Yeah.
And I think people who have been watching me on the sidelines to get to where I am today, they're probably like, wow, I would have never thought she would get there.
Yeah.
Because they doubted so much. I think that's kind of cool though when people doubt you.
Yeah.
I definitely think I don't think a lot of people would bet on me early on. But I think I've been able to kind of just turn the tables in that sense because I always stay true to myself. And creating content was a big thing for me. I still do it today.
Yeah.
I always focus on the positive of like what I am doing. It was never because like, oh, I want to be in the spotlight or I want to share my struggles. And like, no, it's because I knew that I'm helping people's lives. And when I get those emails or those DMs, which I always like to publish, of people telling me that I've changed their life because of my content, that's why I do what I do. I don't do it for any other reason because I get a lot of negativity from it anyways. So it's not like I'm like, yes, please be negative towards me. Is all the positive reinforcements of people that are like, please keep doing what you're doing regardless of what other people are saying. And I would say what's been shocking, I think, for a lot of people is that I've been able to do all of this while still maintaining a good career and perform extremely well at what I do at work. Yeah. Because if I wasn't performing, I would have been gone a long time ago. Yeah. You know, we have our company is very driven on performance. Yeah. And so if I wasn't doing a good job and going above and beyond, which I have for the last 11 years, they would have got rid of me a while ago. You know, they're probably like, let's get rid of this problem that's on social media. But at the end of the day, I deliver results. And I think that's what people should focus on. Yeah. That I've been able to do all of it while delivering results and giving value to both my career and to my social media. Yeah. And so I think it's kind of cool that I have been sharing my story and that I think at the end of the day, I just want to show people that you don't have to have a traditional path to get somewhere. No. I've done like this, so many ups and downs, and I still ended up in a great place. Like I'm in a good place today. I'm in a good career. Yeah. That I don't think people would have ever thought that I would get there.
What would your advice be to your younger self? Like the young version of Massiel. Now obviously Sky just turned 3. She just had her birthday. Well, multiple of them. Like, what would your advice be to a younger version of Massiel?
My advice would be, I guess just to, believe in yourself more than you do. Because even though I may come off as like very confident in what I'm doing, there's always doubts on like, can I really do this? Can I really take this risk? Can I, you know? And I would say like Tim's always the one that's always like pushing me off the cliff. Like, so I think it's important to find a partner that wants the best for you and that is like pushing you off the cliff when I need it. And so I think just continue to trust that I could do whatever I want to do if I put my mind to it and it'll be successful. Because there's always that, I'm always afraid that maybe certain things won't work out. But what's the worst that could happen?
How do you manage it all? Like successful career, successful business, flipping the barrel, family, your health, like that's a lot. Like a lot of people like, how the hell do you fit all this in? Like we only have 24 hours in a day. Like what advice would you give to someone like when it comes to managing it all and time management?
Time management. I think I would say I look at my days in maximizing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes maximizing could be detrimental because you're like really analyzing everything to get as much done.
Yeah.
But I always block my calendar for like working out.
Yeah.
You know, certain time. I block different things in the day on focus times, etc. Because I think that's how you can be successful versus like just go meeting. You never have time to just sit with yourself and think. And I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah.
The other thing is I find a lot of people don't have a drive.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it, but even like I hope that every time I post my story every single morning of me on the treadmill or me at the gym,
Yeah.
that I inspire someone that's on their couch watching me going like, I should probably go to the gym today.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to think that a lot of my followers are doing that, they're probably like, oh, she's doing a great job. I should probably do that. And then they go to the next story.
Yeah.
And so I think people really need to just own their time. And at the end of the day, I always tell people like, you can have it all if you want to. There's going to be sacrifices in a way.
Yeah.
I don't like to call them sacrifices, but you can't be perfect at everything.
Mhm.
So even though it could look like I have it all together, most of the time I don't. And I'm just scrambling day to day.
Yeah.
In doing things. And so I don't get back to a lot of text messages. I don't get back to a lot of phone calls missed. I don't check in with my mom as much as I should. There's so many things that are falling apart, but it's just kind of how it is. Every day is like one focus on one thing. And, you know, one day I'm a good mom, one day I'm not a good mom, one day I'm a good wife, one day I'm not.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to go with it. But on time management, I would say everybody is way too invested in social media and watching other people live their life and not enough of yours. So I always tell people like, and I sometimes will post it, even though it could look like I'm on Instagram all day because I have stories.
Yeah.
I am not consuming people's content. Like it's very rare that I will look at people's stories, or if I do, it's like a few people.
Yeah.
But I don't go and just spend countless hours on that.
Doom scrolling.
No.
Yeah.
Or TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's easy because it's so addictive.
It is.
But you really need to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not making you money. It's not making you be better. And so you just need to realize those things. And there's so many apps now and like settings that you can do with your phone to really block, restrict time. And I do that all the time, where I can only be on Instagram an hour a day.
Yeah. I think be a creator, not a consumer.
Yes.
That's where the money is.
Yes.
You know, you've had a long career, over 12 years in the energy industry. What was the lowest moment?
The lowest. I think layoff is like one that pops up. Lowest moment. I would say it's when we moved to Mexico.
Yeah.
It was not a good time.
Yeah.
I think in every high there's a low.
Yeah.
And when I left the US to go to Mexico, I was on a high. I was like top performer, best sales, like highest rating that you can think of in the company. And then all of a sudden your environment changes and your performance changes because you're not thriving there anymore.
Yeah.
And I literally went from like top employee to like the worst employee, I think, and just because of the environment. And so I learned, I think through that you're just as good as your last job, and you kind of have to always, every year you kind of have to get back on the horse. And just because you were good for 10 years, your 11th year it can go downhill and then you're a nobody. And so I think it also made me realize that, you know, your career is long and you're gonna have a few bad years, and that's normal. You can't just be on an upward climb. I was on an upward climb, and then Mexico happened, and then now I'm kind of like getting back up from the horse, you know. But it's just a life lesson that not everything will go up,
and that's okay. And at the end of the day, what does it all mean to you? Like, what does happiness mean to you?
How do you define that question? I think I've redefined what success means to me. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, it would have been like, oh, I need to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I need to get at the top of this company. I need to be a title someday. Yeah. That was just my drive. And I thought that's what meant success. Yeah. If you ask me today, success to me means like, and I've seen a few memes of this and I love it. It's like picking up my kid at school for lunchtime. Yeah. Like, it's weird how like life changes and how your priorities change. But I think like what makes me happy is like being home with my family. Yeah. And if I have to be away on work trips 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, high stress job where you're there like Monday to Friday. Like,
Yeah.
even though you could be a title and you're like, oh, you're the CEO, you're the senior vice president. Like, I look at that now and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for all of you.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems like a sad life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of just want to be home with my family and like have like Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. Like, how can I do that? That's happiness to me.
Yeah. Like retiring at 40 would be
That's
success.
my goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to retire early.
Yeah.
And I guess when you say retire early, like, it's not like I'm not going to do anything with my life, but
No.
you know, like, I don't think a long-term career is in my books anymore. And I think a lot of people that I talk to that are my age or my peers in different companies, we're all like, when can we stop working? Like, that like getting to 65 years old and like that's just not a thing anymore. People are realizing that life is too short to be 100%. I don't know. Yeah. Being in like an office all day long.
Yeah. Family is number one.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like chasing titles and accolades, like
no.
Each time you win one, like you're always looking ahead, like what's next? Like how can I keep? Like it's a never-ending cycle, right? But family is something that's there. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. Family's first.
I want to say thank you, Massiel, just for being a big supporter of the podcast, and I think as well for me personally. Just as like a mentor, like working with you for Flipping the Barrel, like I've learned a lot just from your drive and your passion.
Really? Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and just want to say thank you for that as well. Just looking ahead, I want to give you the opportunity to share what's next in the near future for Massiel and Flipping the Barrel.
So near future for Flipping the Barrel, you know, we're continuing to do what we do best, which is the podcast and the events, and hopefully, you know, expanding our footprint to other cities and just different countries. And so we have our event, Representation Matters, in Houston at Lakeside Country Club, October 25th, which is a Friday. And, you know, tables and tickets are available now. We have a great lineup of people. And so that's what's next for Flipping the Barrel here in 2024. And yeah, we're excited. Jamie's having her second baby today.
Oh my God.
So I hope after this podcast, we'll get to see some pictures. But yeah, you know, we're here and we're strong, and Flipping the Barrel is not going anywhere.
And where can people find you if they want to learn more about Massiel or Flipping the Barrel?
So Flipping the Barrel on LinkedIn. Yeah. Just type it in. www.flippingthebarrel.com. Instagram, Flipping the Barrel. Yeah. And then for myself is at Macefit Life. Yeah. Yeah. You can probably put it in. I was going to spell it. And then Massiel Diez on LinkedIn is where you can find me. YouTube, just type in Massiel Diez as well.
Massiel, thank you so much. Like, I've learned so much from this conversation and just appreciate what you're doing. So
thank you, Rory. Well, congratulations to you and the team for a phenomenal podcast. Shout out to Sarah and you for being behind, and Megan behind Flipping the Barrel. And shout out to Prince, who is phenomenal, who's our social media manager. I know he'll be watching. And so thank you, Prince, for everything you do for Flipping the Barrel.